This is an exclusive presentation of WOWO 1190 AM and 107.5 FM, Unholstered.
Hey, welcome back to another edition of Unholstered. Hope you're having a fantastic weekend. We've just had absolutely beautiful weather here in the Midwest. We hope it sticks around. My name is Kayla Blakesley. I am just one of your hosts here on Unholstered. My co-host is sitting right across from me, Sophia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sophia Rosales-Gatina, and I am a captain with Fort Wayne Police Department, and welcome to the show Unholstered.
If this is your first time tuning in, this show is all about the local media, which is me, teaming up with the Fort Wayne Police Department here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is obviously the side that Sophia represents. But we've joined forces to come together to share and tell a lot of the stories just that don't often get told, particularly when it comes to backing our men and women in blue. And Sophia, that's pretty much what this whole week is about. It's actually a pretty special week. It's National Police Week. It just kicked off the 11th, and it runs to the 17th.
Correct. This is a week that every year we take out to celebrate those who have lost their lives in service to their communities. We honor them and their families. And this is a huge ordeal, and it's happening in Washington, D.C. this week. We had our own memorial service on Friday. It was at 11 a.m., so we honored those who have lost their lives in the line of duty in our area here at the Police Memorial on Wells Street.
You know, I got to say, there's nothing that brings more people together than honoring a fallen police officer. You know, people just come out of the woodwork for that, as they should. But today is kind of all about, you know, when those folks go home. The spouses are usually left behind, if there is a spouse, you know, in most cases, to pick up the pieces, if you will. And Sophia, you have brought in some really, really lovely women here today to kind of elaborate that on that a little bit more. So who did you bring?
Well, it's my honor that these ladies joined us today. We tried this once again, but one of them had a medical emergency, so we had to postpone this beautiful...
She's okay. Let's put that out there.
We had to postpone this episode, but I did want to bring them in because it's so important that our community recognizes the sacrifices that our men and women make and that their families make, and that sometimes they don't come home. And it leaves this hole in your heart and in your world because, you know, it's... Losing a spouse is just one of those things that's so difficult. You know, there's such a completeness of our life in terms of protection and safety and encouragement, support. And when you lose that, it just leaves you feeling very, very broken. And these ladies are rock stars. They've come together. They formed a group. Before we get into all that, I'm sorry, I need to let them introduce themselves. I'm getting carried away because I'm just in awe of them and their perseverance and then their support that they show each other. So I'm going to start with Susie.
Okay. My name is Susie Thomas. It was Susie Madison 20-some years ago.
My name is Chris Tinsley.
My name's Diana Cox, and my husband was with the Allen County Sheriff's Department.
So all of you were at one point then married to a police officer, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Can we take a moment and share your stories? Are you comfortable with that? We'll just start with you, Susie, and kind
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Soon to be 22 years ago, October 5th. So Brad was out patrolling, and my husband was Brad Madison. He was on the city of Fort Wayne, out on third shift patrol, and a semi ran a red light and hit his squad car. And subsequently, he lost his life that day, October 5th of 2000.
My husband was David Tinsley. He was an officer with Fort Wayne Police Department, and he was involved in a pursuit on, it was actually September 10th of 2018 that the pursuit started late in the evening. He and a training officer were helping. The person had driven their car off the River Greenway, gotten out, and it turned into a foot pursuit. And so my husband, along with other officers, was looking for this, for the perpetrator, I guess would be the best word. And he was found not by my husband and his training officer, but by someone else. And on their way back to the car, he collapsed from a heart attack. And the officer he was training immediately began CPR, but was unable to revive him. Other officers took over, but unfortunately, he passed away at the hospital in the very early hours of September 11th.
My name is Diana Cox, and my husband was a sergeant with the Allen County Sheriff's Department. 5 years ago, February 12th, 2017, Joe was got called to work an accident in the Grable area with, I think, a horse and buggy was involved. And after he was working the accident, he was going to the Amish home to check on one of the boy that was in the buggy. And after he left the home, he got in his car, and then the Amish gentleman saw his car just immediately go into reverse. He had had a heart attack once he'd gotten in his car. So he was pronounced dead at the hospital following that.
Sophia said it, and I'm going to echo it already. You know, y'all are rock stars, first of all, to even just sit and share your stories and to share them so openly. So I'm going to go ahead and assume, because let's be very transparent. I don't know you ladies. I've never met you ladies until you walked in today. Y'all seem bright and lovely and just so cheerful, and yet something this horrific has brought you three together. Can you share how you ended up kind of forming this girls group, this ladies group? I mean, do you guys have an official name? Would you call yourselves anything?
We call ourselves the Wids, and that's down to my daughter. One day she just said something like, "So are you getting together with the Wids tonight?"
And it's stuck.
And it stuck.
Did you know this, Sophia?
I did. They've, I will say this. I didn't lose my husband. He wasn't a first responder at the time of his death, but they have welcomed me in their group because I am a first responder. And I tell you, this is an amazing group that I'm so grateful and blessed to be in, because it's so encouraging, uplifting. I mean, we get together for dinners, we laugh, we cry, texting, making sure that everybody on, the anniversary of their loved one's death, they get a text from the whole group. On birthdays, anniversaries, you name it, these ladies remember everything. And it's just so important. And it's not just a group here. This group encompasses the area. We have people from the...
I was going to ask that if it's just you four or if there are other...
No.
At times I think we've had up to almost 15 at dinner.
Wow.
Yeah, and these are all first responder widows, and it includes fire as well.
Okay.
Because we have had several die from that.
Well, I mean, if someone's listening right now and they're like, I need to be in this group, I need to meet these women, can they do that?
We'll arrange meet and greets later.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I'll tell them to contact you, Sophia.
Yeah. Well, and I will say that most of the times that something like this happens in the state of Indiana, these ladies know. Susie is an amazing person, and she's actually going to D.C. this week to help with National Police Week and for the area, the Indiana people, to make sure that there's a picnic, that she gets to set that up for Indiana, a survivors picnic. And then she'll help with the families and making sure that they get where they need to be and do all these things. Like I said, she's a rock star, and she's been at this for the 20 years.
So then, okay, bridge this gap for me then. How did you three, you four, or at times your group of 15, I mean, how did you form the Wids?
Well, as part of being the seasoned one, if something happens in our area, there's a statewide organization called Indiana Concerns of Police Survivors. They reach out to a local survivor to kind of bridge that gap and walk with the family.
That's amazing. I did not know that.
And so I was the lucky one that got to meet these ladies in their worst of times and walk alongside them for their husbands' funerals and do that. And it's also like a Fraternal Order of Police memorial team. So sometimes they'll pull me into another area. So I'm actually going to D.C. to walk alongside a family from Hammond, Indiana, that I help with their funeral. And so just from there, we just, it was a lonely walk 21 years ago because there wasn't there wasn't a whole lot of people.
Communication like that, and people talking about it, yeah.
And I mean, I was 32 years old.
Jeez.
And just kind of not doing it the right way. So I just hope to pass on some of my not so right ways.
Well, I kind of want to touch on that too, if you can. And this is to really all three of you. I mean, just how vital and how important. Again, Susie, I get it. You're a little bit different because it was back in 2000, obviously. But maybe for you two ladies to have this extra hand, I guess, help guide you. I don't know if it's able to help spare some pain. I mean, I don't know, obviously.
I can't tell you how important it is. I don't know what I would do without these ladies. I mean, they're there all the time. I know I could call or text, any of them at any time, and they'd be there for me. And, the night I met Susie, of course, was the worst night of my life. Mm-hmm. And she kind of guided me through the whole...
So wait a minute, Susie, you went running to Chris's side that night.
I have friends on, and social media too,
Yeah.
kind of obviously people like to put stuff out there.
Yeah.
So either that alerts me, or I'm friends with Mitch McKinney, so he alerts me that
He's a good man to know, I tell you what.
Yes. So, or Sophia, one of them alerts me to the fact that there was, something has happened, and so thankfully I am so blessed with a family that supports me in saying, "Go, go, do your thing. We got this," and so. Same thing with Diana. I kind of got that call that here we go.
Yeah, we met at Susie and I met at the funeral home, which I met Chris at the funeral home.
We also met at a funeral home.
And I also met Alicia Balliet at the funeral home.
When you meet up, I mean, I'm really having a hard time digesting, because to me that's just like you said, it's the worst night of your life. It's the worst day of your life. I can't even grasp what kind of conversations are had in those moments.
Well, what's funny is I was just thinking about that exactly, and it's really not a conversation. There's really a lot of words unspoken where you're just standing in the moment with them, and once they figure out who you are and why you're there.
I thought she worked for the funeral home.
Oh my gosh, no kidding.
I'm thinking, why is she in here?
There are just so many people there that night. I mean, you're bombarded. There are all these people coming in, and they're all coming to help, but you don't know who's who, and it's really a very confusing time, and a lot of it, I'm sure for me and for these other ladies, it's just a blur. I mean, just certain things really stand out, but other things I
can't even remember. Yeah.
Exactly.
And once you realize that it's another person that's walked those shoes, then it's just like an instant
bond, an instant connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's not many other people on the planet who can relate to that moment.
Right.
Which is obviously why y'all are so special, and you can tell y'all are like sisters, like best friends. I feel like I'm like watching the Yaya sisterhood or something.
Like I said, this is an important message I think the community needs to hear, because unfortunately it's happening more often. And I know you always say I'm the statistics girl, and I did bring some today. So it's important that our community know, and thank heavens that this hasn't touched our community here recently, but it could happen anytime, because attacks are up. We've talked about that on previous shows. But in 2021, 617 officers died in the line of duty, 62 by gunfire, 17 by vehicular assault, 14 were struck by a vehicle, 4 stabbed, 6 battered, 439 by COVID, and then there's some other ones of drowning and accidental deaths and things like that. But so far in 2022, we've lost 102, 54 by COVID, 19 by gunfire. That's an increase of 38% of officers shot in the line of duty from 2020. And we've had 123 officers shot this year alone, and 19 have been killed by gunfire. So
That's
violence...
just this year already?
Just this year. 123 have been shot.
Jeez.
So this is a real scary time for spouses, for families of law enforcement officers. I mean, you see on the news every day something happening. And I just want this community to know and that we appreciate your support and keep on giving it, because our officers need it. I mean, this is the time we're in the trenches. Morale is low just because, workforces are low throughout the country. We're holding steady here in Fort Wayne. We have a class in right now that's coming in at 36, I think we have. So our numbers will be increasing. But again, we don't have a lot of people coming into this field because of the social...
There's so much negative rhetoric right now.
Right. But this community is blessed with good people, good officers, a good support system for families as well. So these ladies, like I said, I'm just in awe of them and all that they do and all that their strength, their sense of community for everybody in the law enforcement world.
And I get that, and I can see that. But what I can't help but to nagging me in the back of my mind, to me, I would feel like, let's say, Susie, it's the night you're going to Chris, or Diane. Doesn't a part of your soul relive that own moment of your own just time and time again? I mean, I can't imagine enduring that, but yet here you ladies are doing it, and quite frankly, y'all have smiles on your faces. I'm just baffled by all of you,
Regardless whether you know the person or not, as soon as Susie Susie texted me and said, just wanted you to know, Fort Wayne's had a line of duty death, meaning Dave. Like, just to brace yourself, you're going to have some things happen that are going to take you right
Kinda
back.
dig this all back
Take
up.
you right back. But at the same time, as you're feeling that, immediately I said to Susie, let me know if Chris wants to meet me. I'd love to meet her, because you know how she feels more than anyone else.
And it was such a huge comfort to me. Like I said, I met Diana at the funeral home. I mean, Susie said, there's another wife that would like to meet you. She lost her husband, and I can remember the three of us sitting there, in the room where the casket was, and these ladies just hugging me and comforting me.
And for you, they're complete strangers at that time. Right?
Yeah, I had just met Susie like a day or so ago, and just meet. Yeah,
Susie seems like someone though that you meet and you're instantly best friends.
Yes,
with. I'll say that.
Yes.
She makes you her best friend.
Yeah, whether you want to be or not.
She really does. But like, and I don't remember who said it earlier, but it's an instant bond. It's just instant.
Yeah.
How do you feel, Susie, knowing you didn't have what they had?
Well, that's why a lot that drives why I want to do it.
Because you know what that's like to not have that helping hand.
Yeah. I mean, there were Indiana Conservative Police Survivors was around, but a lot of them are kind of centralized in Indianapolis. So you kind of doing my own thing up here in Northeast Indiana. And,
No one stopped you yet by the sounds.
Yeah. Well, I had some years that weren't so brilliant, and I could have used a Susie in my life to say, maybe not the best decision, but
We're laughing because we know what those are.
Exactly.
That sounds like a show for
I am
off the
here
air.
to say I made it. And I've always said, if I can just help them with one step easier than what I had it, my job is done. Just one step.
Well, I think, Sophia, that goes back to just National Police Week, too, and why it's something that we need to take really seriously and understand what it is and why we honor not only our fallen police officers, but in this case, their spouses, their families, their loved ones. I mean, to some degree, all in the trenches, too.
They are. I think day in and day out, when they see their loved one walk out the door, it's just so unpredictable these days if they're going to come home. And it's a lot of stress. So I'm really glad back in the day that John F. Kennedy had the fortitude to create this week, and National Police Officers Day is May 15th. So it's great that we celebrate it, because these people need celebration. They've given everything that they have for their communities, and including their families. They've given up their families, and they're left to pick up the pieces of a future they thought they might have with their loved one. And it's hard. It's hard work. And I know when you said that, they're out here helping and they relive this, but they relive it in a good way. I think their spouses see their strength, their love, and their willingness to help someone else in pain. Because I tell you, going through this unexpected event is just difficult. But we're all here for each other.
That's right.
And if someone is out there that they need to make contact, they can do that through you to get to me, and we'll get them into the group.
Absolutely.
But I think pretty much we have everybody in the area.
We kind of went beyond the line of duty and just anybody active duty. Just the first responder world in general is a different world.
I'm learning that. The more I hang out with Sophia.
Yeah. And so it's like a whole different language. And we speak each other's language around that table. And that's what's nice, is you don't have to try to explain yourself or what you're trying to say or what you're trying to...
Yeah. One of us has felt it.
Right.
One of us has felt exactly what someone else has felt.
In 2017, basically, it was just Susie and I going out to dinner.
Yeah.
And
Oh, no kidding. So here we are.
yes, and then we would, if we wanted to meet with a larger group, we would meet the Indianapolis kind of area people. We'd meet in Gas City and have dinner. But then we realized there were more people in our area that we could just bring more people in. And then, of course, after Dave died, Chris was in our group, and Sophia's in our group. So it used to just be Susie and I.
Did COVID take an impact on you girls or people in the group? Because you're just talking about getting together potentially in Gas City, and sometimes there could be 15 of you. Did that change the dynamic of things for you guys?
Well, I do remember at one point there was a Zoom call that we did for a while. And I don't remember who set it up. I think it was someone with Indiana Cops, and it was set for like a certain night. And I know we did that for a while, and then it kind of just.
Came back to normal dinner.
Yeah,
each other.
I remember we went out to dinner the night before
the last
world
night.
shut down.
The last night.
Yes.
So we were getting our last.
Getting your last supper in.
We were getting our last.
Yes, that's right.
Then we had Christmas at
My house
Diana's house
this
and-
year.
Yeah, so and I'm having a summer party this year at mine. So yeah, it's you just make do.
Yeah. When y'all did marry your spouses, at the time, were they serving police officers?
Mine was a police officer, yes.
Same with you two, or
No, mine was we actually moved to Fort Wayne for my husband to go to Concordia Seminary.
Okay.
He was going to become a Lutheran pastor.
okay, you're gonna have to explain this
And,
one.
okay, to go back a little bit, his original degree was in criminal justice.
Okay.
But we met in college. In his senior year, he had always kind of had in the back of his head that he might want to become a minister, and he said, I want to go to the seminary. So we got married after graduation, and we moved to Fort Wayne, and he started at the seminary. And for various reasons, he just decided that was not
God was tugging him in another
his
direction.
path after all. And then he spent another, probably 7 or 8 years before he applied for the academy. He was actually the oldest one in his class, just made the cutoff at 34. He turned 34 right about the time of his graduation from the academy. So he took kind of a little bit of a circular...
Little detour.
Yeah, a little detour to get there. So.
What about you, Diana, when you got married?
I met Joe. I met Joe at Riley Children's Hospital, and he was a police officer, but I met him at the Children's Hospital.
So when you marry these men, and then obviously down the road, Chris, when Dave tells you, "Hey, I want to be a police officer," does that thought ever enter your brain, like, "Please don't," or "I'm scared to marry a police officer. I don't want to lose you"? Does that go through your brains? Do you process that, or
That was never a thought with me. I trusted Brad. I knew he was a good police officer.
Yeah.
And I knew he was going to do it. It never entered my mind until the night they knocked on my door.
I'm thankful that God did not give me a spirit of fear.
Yeah.
But I also believed Joe when Joe told me, I wasn't fearful, but some people would say, "Aren't you afraid he's on the SWAT team?" Joe would say, "We're safer and we know more going into a SWAT call out than we do in a traffic stop." Because a traffic stop, you never know what you're going to get. And I just
That's
always...
a fair point,
I
actually,
just
yeah.
always believed him, and I believed in God's sovereignty.
what about you, Sophia? Because your husband was a first responder too.
Yeah, one time it never occurred to me, and people ask me all the time, "Aren't you afraid?" And I'm like, I'm not. I'm not afraid. My training is I'm just very grateful we have the trainers that we have here that give us superb training. Like, I just went through in-service training yesterday, and I was so happy to be back on the mat because COVID had kind of slowed a little bit of that down, but I was happy to be back on the mat and doing defensive tactics, and I was just excited, and what we were doing was fun. And so I'm so reliant on my training. It's just second nature. And I think for everyone here, because I knew all of their husbands very well, and especially Brad. Brad was a jokester, and I remember him. He was hilarious at squad meetings. And he was just such a good man. I mean, you just get this feeling about certain people that they're just a certain way. And Joe is just always so solid.
Aw, thanks.
And then Dave was, again, another solid dude. He was very quiet, but he did excellent work. But he had compassion, and he just was such a hard worker, but he still had compassion for people no matter what he did. He was tough, but he had compassion.
So, ladies, as it is National Police Week, and I won't totally spill the beans, but one of you came in today and you said you get frustrated sometimes when people get it mixed up with, Police Appreciation Week and so on and so forth. If there is any message that you just wanted to share and pass along to folks listening right now who, including myself, I do have a new appreciation just from meeting the three of you for National Police Week as we walk into it. And I'll be honest, I probably didn't take it as seriously 25 minutes ago, than I do now. So is there anything, open mic to you three that you'd like to pass along?
The thing that we probably care about the most is that our husbands are not forgotten and that people always remember them. And that's really, I think, a lot of what Police Week is about, is remembering the fallen. Some people think like we don't want to talk about our husbands, like it makes us uncomfortable, but really that's all we want to do.
See, I didn't get that vibe now from any of you.
Yeah. It's really like what we want to do is talk about them. And for someone to text me and say, hey, I'm thinking about my buddy today, I miss him, I'm like, oh, that just means the world to me.
Yeah, just that they're remembered and that people understand what a sacrifice it truly is to be an officer. They come up. I can't imagine, the type of situations that Sophia has to deal with sometimes, or, situations that Dave would tell me about. And, they put everything out there to help people in the community. And, I just want people to remember that.
Well, it's truly been my pleasure getting to know all three of you. Like I said, I said it off the air when you walked in, I was like, I don't know what we're getting ourselves into. But Sophia, I really appreciate you. I know you've shared your story before, but continuing to share it as well and bringing in these ladies. I do want to throw out that call one more time. Someone's listening and they need to get in contact.
Absolutely.
With you gals. I'll put out my own email. Listeners know how to get a hold of me. Sophia, they know how to get a hold of you for the most part. If not, bother me. And we'll get you in contact for sure.
Absolutely. We don't want anybody hurting.
Your town, your teens, your topics. This is Unholstered.
Thanks for listening to Unholstered. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen. And remember, you can listen every Saturday morning at 10:30 on WOWO 1190 and 107.5 FM.
Podcasts by Federated Media.